That's right. Yeah.
Well, apparently the soccer crowds aren't entertained.
No, sadly. Well, people get injured. It's terrible. 131873. Just stacks of calls, Mike. I'll just whip through some of these with you. Glenn is on line one. Glenn, you were at the game, were you, last night?
I was, yeah. It was definitely the angriest crowd I've ever seen at a sporting event. It started, I think, I arrived about 2 hours before the game, and the police and security were removing signs that were talking about APL greed. They were sort of confiscating the signs. I think that revved the crowd up more.
Right.
I mean, a few of the signs were F the APL, which is fair enough. They took them down, confiscated them, but many of them were just, about the grand final being moved to Sydney, and I thought it was unfair that they were removed. There was singing and chanting the whole time of F the APL, F the APL. I had a young daughter, so that was a bit of an issue. I've never seen language like that at a sports event. It was pretty much the whole time they were just singing continuously, F the APL, F the APL. People yelling out, F Townsend. But I think when it got out of control was when the flares started. There was lots and lots of flares. I think the flares are normally sort of to celebrate a goal. Last night they were more about protest. So they were just letting flares off and throwing them on the ground. Not to celebrate, but to protest the game being moved to Sydney, the grand final. But the thing that caused the real issue was when a flare was on the ground. I can't think of his name. The Melbourne City keeper threw the flare into the crowd, and to escape the burning flare, a handful of guys jumped the fence. And then once a handful of guys jumped on the field to escape the flare, all these other guys jumped on the field as well.
On for young and old, yeah. I mean, I've seen the footage. You were there. I've seen the camera footage, and it was very, very frightening. I think if you're on the ground, if you're the referee, if you're the goalkeeper, it would have been a rather terrifying situation, Mike. I thank you, Glenn, for your call and for your sort of eyewitness account. Mike, the question I asked earlier regarding these flares, and again, they only seem to turn up at soccer matches to the best of my knowledge, is how the hell do they get them into the ground? I mean, we're told everywhere we go these days we're scanned and surveilled and patted down and who knows what. And yet it seems that flares continually get into soccer grounds here and overseas, and yet, we're told, oh no, these are safe events, the terrorists, we've got their measure. Do we?
Well, I heard you pose the question, and I don't have an answer because a flare is a fairly large thing, isn't it? Yeah. And if you've got more than one, which I presume, if you're a well-equipped lout, you do, then how come they're not picked up when you go through? I don't know what they're made of. It may not be something that can be picked up by a metal detector, but surely it'd be obvious just from the pockets, wouldn't it?
Well, look, I just don't know how it's done. I haven't been to an A-League soccer match for yonks, but I've been to plenty of rugby matches and cricket events and things like that and concerts, and every time you go, if you've got a bag, if they let you take anything in, they check the bag, and so they should. You'd like to think it's done thoroughly, but it just sort of plants a little worrying thought in the back of my mind. If these things constantly get through, and surely you know to look for them, then what else might get through with someone with far more malicious intent?
Well, that's true. And listening to your caller there,